Welcome to my unboxing of the Corsair Carbide series 400R case. Here you can see a kind of blown up view of the case, and while I could show you all of the features on here, I am not really going to do that because we're going to open up the case anyway, and I would rather show you on the actual chassis itself. Right now I'm just showing you the box because this is an unboxing. Although I don't like to think of them as just unboxings because unboxings are usually pretty dry, to be honest. So right now I'm making an incision on this side, and now I'm making an incision on the other side. Now, I'm really excited about what's inside this box, and I think that you guys will be excited too, because yeah, this is pretty cool. Look at this. Oh wow, unboxed. So you know what? I'm not going to make you guys sit through that. Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to get the case extracted from the padding. I just want to show you guys the styrofoam packaging. So they've gone with sort of thin here, but up to about 1 inch plus thick on the sides, and then on the top we're looking at about the same thickness. Wow, look at that. About 1 inch or even more, depending on which part of the case is being supported by the foam inserts. They are using a stiff foam. This is a value case, so Corsair has gone with saving a little bit of money on the packaging compared to their more expensive cases like the 650D or the 800D. So the first thing I noticed about this case was that it has a pretty robust carrying handle on the top of it. We'll go ahead and put that down there so you can kind of see nice and deep, so even if you have long fingers you're going to be able to get a good grip on that. On the top we find dual 120mm fans or dual 140mm fans, and what's cool is the way Corsair has spaced this out. It's so that you can actually put the fans right next to each other for a clean aesthetic, whether they're 120 or whether they're 140, because they have expanded the 140 compatibility out the other side rather than spacing the... Sorry about that, guys. We ran out of space and all the footage on there was important, so I don't really remember where I left off yesterday, but here we are. So it has the carrying handle, we talked about that. It has the fan spacing, which is pretty ideal. I believe we talked about that briefly. Let's do a bit of an overview of the outside of the case as a whole. So in addition to those dual 120s or dual 140s on the top, we've also got dual 120s or dual 140s here on the side. So this is going to give you a ton, a buttload, so to speak, of airflow over your CPU area as well as your video card area. And then on the back, for other cooling options, we've also got a 120 or 140mm fan mount, whichever you choose to go with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Look at that. This is one of the least expensive cases I've yet seen that has 8 expansion slots, so that will allow you, even with a standard ATX board, you can sometimes use 8 expansion slots, because if you have a PCIe slot right at the bottom, you can then install a dual slot, a dual width graphics card in that very bottom slot without any difficulty. So that's pretty cool. Okay. On the other side, we see that the overall design of the case favors a narrower footprint to the case, and then a widening of the side panels for better cable routing, better cable management. That's one of the things Corsair is good about. They have good aesthetic to their cases, but they also really do take functionality into consideration when they are designing these things. So on the front, we've got our power button, our hard drive LED, 2 USB 3.0 ports, a microphone port, headphone port, FireWire port. Now that's an odd one. But hey, I guess some people still use it. That looks like some kind of an LED button. Okay. And then finally we have a reset button. 4 5¼ bays, which is a good number. And then in the front we've got another 2 120mm fans, which we can see through that, that mesh on the front. So this is definitely a cooler's dream, because 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 6 surfaces of this case actually have room to mount cooling fans, and by 4 what I meant was 5, because you can clearly see on the bottom here there is room to mount yet another single 120mm or single 140mm fan. And I forgot to turn on my light, so there, that's on now. Should be a little bit better for you guys. Alright, what else do we find inside? This is interesting. The motherboard tray is actually recessed. So what they've done here is they've taken what is normally a flat backplane on a case like this, and here, I'm going to hold up the side panel just so that I can show you guys. So you can kind of relate this to the side panel on the other side. So where the side panel doesn't jut out as much, they've gone with a flat, they've gone with something that's even with the overall profile of the case. And then where the side panel bulges out, so where it bulges out like this, they've recessed the motherboard tray. So throughout the entire back of the motherboard tray, and then back behind here, behind the rubber grommets, you should have consistent space for managing cables. Very, very interesting, something I haven't seen before. Standard ATX only, so you're not going to be able to fit any wider motherboards or longer motherboards due to that design decision, but I mean, 99% of boards out there are going to fit just fine anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. We've also got on the inside, okay, so we pointed out the 120mm fan already. These are going to be useful for you, so you're going to go ahead and mount your bottom-mounted power supply here. We've got a removable filter that acts as both a filter for this fan intake as well as the power supply, bottom 120mm intake. Rubber grommets here keep the power supply from being damaged or scratched or moving around. All right, so you're going to be able to route all your cables up through here and then coming out wherever they are needed. Speaking of cables coming out where they're needed, these are your front panel connectors. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can remove the cover on here, and I'm not having a whole lot of success just now, but I think I've made progress. Yes, I have. There we are. All right, so we find USB 3, HD audio, front panel, so there's all your switches and LEDs, and finally your front firewire, or 1394 as PC guys are supposed to call it. Last but not least, we've got a power connector, so I'm guessing that's something to do with that light button there. All right, in terms of mounting, we've got 5 1/4 inch toolless mounts here. You also have the option of screwing them in, both at the front and the back. If you are shipping the system or whatever else, you want it to be more secure, you're gonna go ahead and do that. We've got here 6 mounts for both 3 1/2 inch using toolless grommety things here, as well as 2 1/2 inch using screws, hard drive sleds. In terms of accessories, I'm going to go ahead and have a look at what's included here in this box. Oh, that's so funny, look at this. It's the size and shape of, it's like a hard drive placeholder kind of thing. It's got holes in the side for a hard drive, I'm going to put it in there. Brilliant, I guess. All right. Oh, this is a great inclusion. USB 3 to USB 2 adapter. So if you don't have USB 3 on your motherboard natively, you go ahead, you throw that on there, you plug this into your USB 2 header, you got USB 2 on the front. Handy. All right, we got some screws, fan screws. How many have they included? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So enough to mount 3 fans. So I wonder which particular mounts those are for. Because usually these are used for mounting fans to radiators. They're the ones with the long bolts and then the screws in the front. If you guys have any insight as to why they've included this particular type of fan screw, I would love to hear about it. So there you go. All right, next we've got some hard drive screws, we've got some optical drive screws, we've got some power supply screws, some cable management, zip ties, and little plastic clips, and finally a few motherboard standoffs, because most of the motherboard standoffs are already built into the case. Now, I've talked a lot about the cable management of this case, but this is all based on sort of my impressions of what it might be like, because I haven't opened up the other side panel yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and we're going to find out if I was right. So I'm going to lay that down like that so you can kind of see if I was on the right track here. So yes, so there's more room here due to this like indentation of the back of the tray, and then there's less room sort of here, so it works out probably about the same as here where there's the bulge, and here where the motherboard sits a little bit further back. So I'm guessing what Corsair's done here is 2 things. They've given you room to manage cables at the back, and they've done a nice thin case that also has room for tall CPU heatsinks. They've also given you a very large hole at the back of the motherboard tray in order to install any backplate requiring CPU heatsinks or water cooling units without removing your motherboard. They've shown you how to use the cable management here. Lots of little loops here for securing zip ties, here, Okay, that's pretty much it. Not much here, but then the only thing you're gonna run up here is your 8-pin EPS, which they've left space for, and I think that pretty much covers it. So thank you for checking out my unboxing and first look or overview of the Corsair 400R. Don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more unboxings, reviews, and other computer videos.